Well, so a deal on the IEBC is just about to be struck, if politicians are to be believed. The talk is that the discussions are progressing well, and soon, very soon in fact, announcement will be made about the fate of IEBC. Most observers claim the electoral body is living on borrowed time. So, if the IEBC is sent home, a clear problem presents itself. Will the new commissioners have enough time to conduct the next election?
We have poured petrol and we can easily put a match on what we have poured because the commissioners now you would bring in, if they are going to be new, just when are they going to get time to study the law, study the practice? By the time we were doing elections in 2002, some of us had already been up there for more than 8 years. So at the moment, the time is running out.
All right, that's former Commissioner Gabriel Mukele. That presents us with a question we want to ask tonight and get your thoughts. We're asking, should the election date be postponed to allow for adequate negotiations on IEBC? Should the election date be postponed to allow for adequate negotiations on IEBC? Tweeters at KTN News, at James Smart. Let me know your thoughts. Absolutely. Monday Night News starts right now. The highlights.
Five policemen killed in yet another terror attack in Mandera.
We're very keen as Jubilee to make sure that the elections are held on the 8th of August 2017 and not a single day later than that.
An agreement to talk is not an agreement on reform.
And resolving the stalemate over the IEBC, but at what cost?
So that work has already been done.
When he ceases to be a sitting judge, then the tribunal ceases to have to exist.
Plus, divided opinion on the fate of retired Judge Philip Tonoi over the bribery claims against him. And the voice of the refugees awaiting repatriation as the Dadaab refugee camp closes down.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the program. My name is James Smart. 5 police officers were Monday killed when their vehicle was attacked by suspected Al-Shabaab militants in Mandera County at the Somalia-Kenya border. Northeastern Regional Coordinator Mohammed Saleh Said said that the attackers escaped soon after the incident that occurred at about 9:30 a.m. He said the officers were escorting a bus when the incident took place in El-Wak area. The passengers in the bus were not affected in the incident. Mandera Governor Ali Rober condemned the incident and accused the police of not acting on an early intelligence warning. This is the latest attack in the area in the last month alone that has left at least 10 officers injured. And now, majority leaders from both the Senate and National Assembly are Wednesday expected to table the names of 14 members who will serve in the Joint Select Committee in a bid to unlock the stalemate over the IEBC. This comes as former commissioners of the defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, Gabriel Mukele, warns against the risk of interfering with the elections calendar should the electoral commissioners be changed.
For the better part of the day, the legal teams from both CORD and Jubilee cracked their heads in a bid to finalize the final details that will eventually see political players take a bipartisan approach in resolving the IEBC stalemate.
And within this week in the National Assembly, we look forward to the motion. Actually, the motion will go to both houses because it's the motion to set up a joint select committee so that we can have closure on this issue. We are very keen as Jubilee to make sure that the elections are held on the 8th of August 2017 and not a single day later than that.
The rival coalitions CORD and Jubilee have covered good ground in reaching an amicable solution. First, they have already agreed that each coalition will be represented by 7 members in the Joint Select Committee. They have also agreed that each coalition will be represented by 1 rapporteur who will be briefing the principals directly on the progress of the talks. The Select Committee will not be restricted on where they will be conducting their meetings. They will have a grace period of 30 days to finalize their motion after they take over their duties, and that the final motion will have to be signed by both the President and CORD co-principal Raila Odinga, which will prevent any amendments to the motion when tabled in Parliament.
Ile mambo tumetuma watu huko. And I hope, my brother Khalwale, you are going to be in that team. And when I send you in that team, I expect nothing less than the best out of you. Kwa sababu sisi team leader wetu ni wakili wetu James Agre Orengo.
The final list of members to serve in the Joint Select Committee will be revealed come Tuesday, with Siaya Senator James Orengo leading the CORD team, while the Jubilee team will be headed by Meru Senator Kerio Murungi.
Members of the public, not to be anxious. You know, they say politics is the art of the possible, not the battleground of absolutes. And ultimately, we will have an agreement between the parties and between Kenyans.
However, according to former commissioner of the defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, Gabriel Mukele, this is a dangerous path that the politicians are taking.
We have poured petrol and we can easily put a match on what we have poured because the commissioners now you will bring in if they are going to be new. Just when are they going to get time to study the law, study the practice? By the time we were doing elections in 2002, some of us had already been up there for more than 8 years.
However, his argument is that the current commissioners face a challenge of rebuilding Kenyans' confidence that they can deliver a free and fair election.
2017 election looks bleak at the moment. Many people think the Electoral Commission is not up to the task, and the time is running out.
The Joint Select Committee will be expected to tour various counties as they collect views from Kenyans on the possible electoral reforms that they are needed before the next general elections. Chris Thairo, KTN News.
In fact, and that's where the big question comes tonight, because you're asking you, should the election date be postponed to allow for adequate negotiations on IEBC? Should the election date, in fact, be postponed to allow for adequate negotiations on IEBC? At James Smart is the handle you're looking for. And at KTN News, let me know your thoughts. What do you think about the latest moves by politicians? Well, now, the tribunal investigating bribery claims against recently retired Supreme Court Judge Philip Tonoi is set to hear the testimony of its last witnesses tomorrow. And now our reporter Muremi Mwangi explores the legal intrigue surrounding the life of the tribunal after Tonoi's retirement.
After losing a bid to block his retirement at 70 years before the Supreme Court on Thursday,
there is a lot of arguments both sides.
72-year-old suspended Supreme Court Judge Philip Tonoi is now staring at a retirement with a tainted legacy. A special tribunal which is investigating claims that in 2014, the judge allegedly received a 200 million shillings bribe from Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero, is staring at an imminent termination of its sittings.
That is what I am now fighting against.
Article 168, subsection 5, pursuant to which the Judicial Service Commission constituted the Tonoi Tribunal, only relates to a sitting judge, but with the JSC having sent Tonoi on retirement and even advertised his post as vacant, analysts are divided on whether this marks the death of the tribunal.
The tribunal's work has technically been rendered what we legally call functus officio. This process was to seek his removal via the action of the Judicial Service Commission. So that work has already been done.
When he ceases to be a sitting judge, then the tribunal ceases to have to exist. or so to speak, to have powers to investigate him.
But lawyer Bobby Mukangi, who sat in the committee of experts that drafted the 2010 Constitution, however, argues that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the Director of Public Prosecution can take up the matter should the tribunal cease its sittings.
The Honorable Justice may also feel that because, as he said, he wanted actually the tribunal hearing to go on and why it is in public, because he wants to clear his name, he can sue the people who accused him, maybe for defamation. He can go to court and seek other further action.
It will be a waste of public resources and an infidelity to law and the Constitution to continue investigating Justice Tonoi when now he is a private citizen and is not acting as a Supreme Court judge.
Confronted with an imminent end to the Tonoi Tribunal, many argue it's probably time for the EACC and the Director of Public Prosecution to dust the notes and take over the investigation in the event that the Tonoi Tribunal ceases to sit from Tuesday. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, in Nairobi.
Well, an Interior Cabinet Secretary, Joseph Nkaiseri, says the recent detention of members of parliament accused of promoting hate speech signifies just the beginning of the war against incitement. Nkaiseri says that should serve as a warning to other leaders inclined to take a similar route.
Tunasema tufuate sheria na hakuna mtu ambaye ninakamata nje ya sheria ama amakamata nje ya sheria. Na si mimi nakamata watu. Ni sheria ndio nakamata. Polisi anatumia sheria kukamata watu na si mimi. Na hiyo ni kiwonjo. Wale watu nani ni kiwonjo. Wale watazidi kuongea mambo ya kuleta chuki. Watakamatwa. That I can assure Kenyan, we are not going back on that one.
Well, some politics now, and the Jubilee merger steering committee says they are all set to launch the Jubilee party. The members say all they are waiting for now is for President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto to set the all-important date. The committee, which was on a retreat in Karen today, says the political parties bill, which was passed by the Senate last week, has paved the way for the dissolution of constituent parties.
We'd rather take 10 hours sharpening our axe so that we cut the tree in a minute. And that is what we've been doing. The hallmark of Jubilee is a free and fair party, you know. And we just want to assure all the contestants, all aspirants, all sitting members that the reason why we've spent much of this time, including the whole of today, is to make sure that we have very free and fair and clear rules for nomination and rules of engagement.
All the legal obstacles that had been on our way, obstacles which had slowed us down, they are now behind us, and we want to thank both the National Assembly and the Senate very much because they passed without amendment the Political Parties Amendment Bill, which has now cleared the way.
The merger is actually going to be bigger than we thought. To date, we have about 13 political parties that have come on board, and we still, on every week, we still have applications from other political parties. So we feel that after we have actually finished the process, we're going to have a rush by political parties to join us. We may even have code. We may have code breaking down and a lot of code affiliate parties coming into Jubilee. That's what I think, and I think it's likely to happen.
And 5 people have been killed in the latest cattle rustling incident between the Pokot and the Marakwets, and our local leaders are calling for urgent government intervention to avert further attacks.
There is something called Call Over Declaration, which I implemented when I became MP in 2003. Why did they not continue to implement? Because they also promised to continue to carry the baton from where I left. And one of the things was that if a person was killed, 40 cows were paid. The alternative justice system or conflict resolution system that we had created in the valley is no longer being implemented. It's so unfortunate that Marakwet, anybody who has been killed, whether up or court, they are killed in Marakwet soil. I am asking the president and his deputy to protect the lives of people in Marakwet East constituency as they swore in the constitution to protect us.
Well, Nakuru County, where an employee of the is running after allegedly defiling and impregnating a standard 8 pupil. The girl, who is a student of a boarding primary school in Kuresoi South constituency, has now been suspended indefinitely. Officers from the Keringat police station have launched a manhunt for the suspect. Well, curtains opened earlier today for the 41st edition of the Kenya Secondary Schools Head Association in Mombasa. This comes amidst a fresh storm pitting the unions against their employer, the TSC, the Teacher Service Commission. KTN News Coast reporter Francis Otuoma has the details.
Despite the contestations, the Teacher Service Commission will still go ahead with unveiling the new teacher regulations that have opened a can of worms with teacher unions expressing outright discomfort. KNUT Secretary General Wilson Sossion walked out of the room, a strong indicator that all was not well. The split is ostensibly occasioned by, among other things, the push to have teachers declare their wealth and their accounts subjected to scrutiny a few days into the profession and at the time of exit. Further, a section of teachers are opposed to a clause blocking them from actively participating in politics.
The Bill of Rights is very clear, and anybody quoting anything out of that, we are telling teachers, if you are interested, declare your interest, contest, mobilize people. Other kinds of done. We have elected Makufuli of Tanzania, the president. He's a teacher of chemistry. And here I'm the teacher of maths and business, so you cannot stop us.
TSC is, however, extending a call for sobriety, defending the code of regulation as one that targets to streamline the profession and help in decentralizing important functions.
The handbook for decentralized teacher management functions seeks to provide guidelines to our officers on what services are available in our various offices and how the services can be assessed.
The documents unveiled also seek to define new roles occasioned by the new constitution, such as that of county directors and registration of teachers.
These are documents we developed with them. We developed the documents with the KNUT and all the stakeholders.
That aside, Education CS Fred Matiang'i broke the ice in the afternoon as he delved into issues of school fees and examination cheating.
Examination cheating is the lowest form of intellectual dishonesty. And we don't have to wait until our children get out of school and become corrupt. We are teaching them corruption through these kinds of things.
President Uhuru Kenyatta and Education CS Matiang'i are slated to address the conference Tuesday. Salary evaluation schemes and the vexing examination cheating are just some of the hot topics expected to feature strongly in the conference that ends on Friday. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Mombasa.
Well, and a reminder of a big question we're asking is, should the election date be postponed to allow for adequate negotiations on the IEBC? You can always tweet us. Nathan Aurora on Twitter says, no, the Constitution states the election date, so should be upheld and IEBC can be dissolved before the elections. No, not even one bit. That's Korir Kennedy tweeting us. Achanga Terry says, no, let the negotiations take place within the stipulated time. Felix Sang says that will be extending the term of the president, which needs a referendum, I beg your pardon. No, let us implement the Constitution. That's Daniel Osiem Mandera on Twitter. Please tweet us at KTN News, at James Smart. Should we postpone the election date to allow for more time to negotiate under the IBC issues? Coming up next, we'll be bringing you that Refugee Day. Don't go too far. This is Monday Night News.
Tweet of the day, in association with Duracoat Silicone Exterior Emulsion Paint.
Refugee Day, and the whole world has its eyes set on Kenya with the recent decision to close down the world's largest refugee camp by November this year. According to the UN, the number of refugees last year hit the highest level in 2 decades, standing at an estimated 16.1 million. Sharon Momani has that report.
For 6 years, Kenya has been home to Halima Hassan. She fled her home country, Ethiopia, for what she says was ethnic conflict. Halima is one of the people who came to mark the World Refugee Day celebrations in Nairobi, albeit stating that she is not ready to go back to Ethiopia.
Kenya has really helped me a lot. UNHCR has also helped, but there have been many problems.
Halima feels like her government has forsaken her, and being here with other refugees in Kenya, she says, leaves her with a sense of belonging.
Everybody dies there. I don't want to go back. If I go back, I'll die. Many are still dying. I'd rather stay here, or else I go and I die.
A classic show of song and dance marked the celebrations which took place at the National Museum of Kenya. Presentations that were made by various refugee groups in the country, including those from Somalia, Ethiopia, Congo, and Rwanda. Halima would not hide her excitement when the Oromo group took to the stage. She felt at home. But all would be keen to hear the elephant in the room addressed, the set closure of the Dadaab camp, which is home to more than 300,000 refugees.
Now, most of the refugees, of course, dream of the day they can go home. And the international community supports efforts to help refugees return home when conditions allow them to do so. But this choice must be made voluntarily by each refugee at a time when they feel it's safe for them and their families to go home.
Serikali imechukua hatua ambayo ni mwafaka, ila tu ni vizuri wachunguze na wapeleleze kabisa ni wakina nani katika huo mkondo wa refugees wanahitaji kabisa warudi nyumbani.
Just last week, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon, who met President Uhuru Kenyatta during his visit to Belgium, backed Kenya's stand to have the camp closed, while at the same time pledging to help secure funds to ensure that the refugees are repatriated safely.
As a country, we have recently faced many threats emanating from hosting refugees in our country. The Garissa and Westgate terrorist attacks were our traced back to Dadaab refugee camps. This is a clear indication that it is about time this camp comes to an end.
There have been questions on the humanity of Kenya's decision to close down Dadaab camp, but Kenya has stood firm on its decision to have the responsibility shared with the international community, stating that the refugee burden in the country has been heavy both economically and security-wise. Sharon Momani, KTN News.
Welcome back. Time for your business news. East African countries are losing approximately $2 billion, or about 200 billion shillings of revenue every year, by granting tax incentives to multinational companies. According to a new report by the Tax Justice Network Africa and ActionAid, 4 EAC countries, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, are all providing generous tax breaks in the form of tax holidays, capital gains tax allowances, and royalty exemptions to various transnational organizations. And these East African countries continue to lose colossal amounts of revenue through the unnecessary tax exemptions and incentives given to these corporations. The report, entitled, quote, Still Racing Towards the Bottom, Corporate Tax Incentives in East Africa, and of course, follows the EAC report series produced by the two organizations in April 2012. The reports note that while statements indicating commitments to revise tax incentives policies have been made by policymakers of the region, many questions abound on how eliminating tax incentives will be realized. And preparations to issue the first batch of Africa Union e-passports are in the final stretch ahead of the official launch and issue of the first batch at the 27th AU Summit in Kigali, Rwanda. The official launch is considered the first step towards realizing the dream of visa-free travel for African citizens within their own continent by 2020. According to the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the initiative is both symbolic and significant and has called it a steady step toward the objective of creating a strong, prosperous, and integrated Africa, driven by its own citizens and capable of taking its rightful place on the world stage. The first group of beneficiaries will include AU heads of state and government ministers of foreign affairs and the permanent representatives of AU member states based at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Aspirations 2 and 7 of the Agenda 2063 respectively envision an Africa that is integrated and united, and the introduction of the Common African Passport as an effort towards realizing integration and unity of the continent. All right, so we often spend a lot of time and money on our own personal grooming in a bid to look good and impress others. Well, this often includes manicures and pedicures, but what about your animals? Animal husbandry experts hold that our farm animals may actually need this tender, loving care more than humans do. On this week's edition of The Next Frontier, Philip Keitany explores the importance of this practice.
Have you ever thought of taking your dairy cow for hoof trimming? If not, it is something as a dairy farmer you need to do. According to Cosmas Mushina from the Kenya Market Dairy Program, failure to treat your cow to this pedicure of sorts could be one of the reasons why you are experiencing low milk production. Though the process is not widely practiced in Kenya, it is said to be crucial in reducing cases of foot injuries in animals.
Hoof trimming affects the whole welfare of the animal, how the cow walks, and also the cow posture, and what in total we look at the cow health.
The hooves of cows, sheep, and goats grow continuously, and if not trimmed, can cause problems and make walking difficult and predispose the animal to other foot problems such as foot rot, especially if animals are in damp and muddy environments.
Problem is you ask a lot of milk of the dairy cows. So you put a lot more food in it than they are used to in the normal way of living. So when you do that, there comes problems with it. So hoof trimming is actually the solver of that problem.
The process starts by restraining the animal in an enclosure, and for large-scale farmers, this cage is the preferred method as it helps minimize movement. Trimming of hooves of a large number of animals can be stressful. Under such circumstances, appropriate trimming tools are essential to do the job properly and easily.
When you want to be a good farmer, you have to get healthy cows. So with hoof trimming, we allow the cow to be healthy.
Using a knife is also dangerous for both the animal and the operator. Hoof trimming tools come in many shapes and design.
When you want to be a happy farmer, you need happy cows. So that is the importance of it.
Breeding bulls, bucks, and rams place greater stress on their hind legs and feet during mating. If they are in pain from bad feet, they will refuse to mate, thus reducing productivity rate in your flock. Thus, hoof trimming is an essential part of animal management.
I would like to say that it's not a work for men only. Even ladies can do it. Because I have tried, I have seen it's easier, and I'll practice so that I can train more women there to be able to do hoof trimming.
Flocks should be checked for hoof growth on a regular basis. Signs that might indicate the need to trim hooves include abnormalities in locomotion and animals showing signs of pain while walking. Some animals require their feet to be trimmed every 2 to 6 months. Philip Keitany for The Next Frontier.
Well, now the fate of billions of shillings held by Imperial Bank Limited could be known by next month. According to Central Bank Governor Dr. Patrick Njoroge, the bank was still in discussions with the bank. Imperial Bank was placed under receivership after it failed to adhere to setting banking rules guidelines.
About Brexit, and we are really at the threshold of that. In a few days, the UK voters will vote to leave or stay in the European Union. And that may cause some turbulence in the global financial markets. But from our perspective, we feel we are a bit insulated from that. And we are ready to deal with that. We are not saying that nothing can shake us. I think that if indeed the worst happens, whatever that is, from a point of view of uncertainty and economic noise, whatever that is, if it happens, we feel that it won't come directly to us because we are not as exposed to the European markets as some seem to believe. Of course, we have some exposure, but much less than others. By the way, we are much more linked to our regional economies. Yeah. For instance, 25% of our exports goes to other EAC countries, 40% to the COMESA region. So we are more regional in that sense, and that has always been one of the sources of our resilience. If you think also about the foreigners or the share of foreigners in the stock exchange, or for that matter, even in the government securities, it's not by any means worrisome. So it's actually low, relatively low.
Well, particularly severe dry harmattan has put pressure on Ghana's cocoa season and raised uncertainty over prospects for the media crop, even after the rainy season set in. While weather conditions have improved compared with last year, farmers in Ghana are still having problems.
58-year-old farmer Mohammed Karim has 10 acres of cocoa trees that he is not sure will yield the kind of harvest he expects at this time of the year. The farm, which Karim inherited from his father 18 years ago, is located 150 kilometers southwest of the Ghanaian capital, Accra. Here, as in other cocoa-growing regions of Ghana, the harmattan, cold, dry winds blowing across West Africa from the Sahara over winter is sapping soil moisture and spoiling seeds.
We have been worried by the harmattan. It could really affect the cocoa's farm because there has not been enough rain. We tried to be patient, otherwise we wouldn't even have bothered and we could have said enough is enough. Now it is raining, but it's not really what we expected. I have also not been receiving farm inputs like fertilizers, and all this is a worry for farmers. The government should try and do something for us.
Ghana's 2014-2015 output came in at 730 tons of beans, well below an initial forecast of more than 1 million tons, due to poor weather and what farmers said were inadequate supplies of fertilizers and pesticides. Industry regulator Cocoa Board's 2015-2016 production target, set at the start of the season in October, is in line with Ghana's average annual output of 850,000 tons, the bulk of which is harvested during the main crop that runs from October to May. The light crop, also called the mid-crop, is expected to open this month, though its start date can vary.
We had targeted that we'll be able to produce 850,000 metric tons. We're hoping that the way it performed, we would be able to achieve that. But because the rains have just set in, we are yet to see the light crop and how it will also behave. And then we can then assess the severity or the effect of the long stretch of harmattan.
Cocoa is a backbone of Ghana's economy along with gold and oil. Ghana has more than 1 million cocoa farmers who rely on the crop, and the lower production this season also hurts government revenue at a time when the country is following an International Monetary Fund loan package aimed at restoring fiscal stability. The country saw growth slow sharply in 2014 due to lower global commodity prices and economic instability, including a sharply falling currency, damaging Ghana's reputation as one of sub-Saharan Africa's boom markets.
In terms of real GDP, for example, in 2015, we noticed that because of the harsh weather condition, the cocoa subsector declined by 1.4%, and that led to a slowdown in the growth of the agricultural sector from 4.6% to 2.4%. So this is what impacts a declining cocoa sector can have on the agricultural sector and the GDP of a country like Ghana.
Local buyers and traders said the overall crop still looked set to end with output below the long-term average. Experts say the harmattan will also affect mid-crop output in neighboring Ivory Coast, the world's top cocoa producer. Peter Okaba, KTN News.
All right, welcome to your Sports Fix. Now, as the Rio Olympics Games continue to draw closer, Kenyan athletes will, in a few weeks, find out their fate in making it to the Kenya's track and field team. The national trials will be held on the 30th and 1st of July at the Kerio Stadium, which the National Olympic Committee term as the perfect venue for the trials, despite opposition from a section of Kenyan athletes.
Despite the fact that over 200 athletes have attained qualification time for the Rio Olympic Games, only 60 athletes will make the team to the Rio Olympic Games during the national trials, which will be held in Eldoret.
This puts a lot of pressure both on the athletes and ourselves because I think in the consultation meeting that we had with AK, the decision or the criteria for selection will be the first two, number one and number two, that is automatic, and the third one will depend on the selectors to look at the consistency and how the athlete, that particular athlete has been performing.
The National Olympic Committee, in partnership with Athletics Kenya, will be breaking the norm, and this year will be taking the Olympic trials out of Nairobi. However, this is not the first time that Olympic trials have been conducted out of the capital. According to the head of delegation to the Rio Olympics, Stephen Soy, they had good reasons as to why the trials will be held at the Kerio Stadium.
We are trying to devolve trials and other competitions in this country. This would, of course, mean that the counties will need to develop their infrastructures for future use. Secondly, we were considering that majority, about 90% of these athletes come from the same area. Thinking about the climatical conditions is that Eldoret climate is almost similar to what we would expect in Rio.
In addition to conducting the national trials for the Rio Olympics in Eldoret, the residential training camp ahead of the Games will also be held in Eldoret.
As management, I think we'll be closely monitoring whatever an individual does. And being in Eldoret, anyway, there are those who will be closer to their homes. But then a disciplined person will not be walking to their homes. That is why we are putting them together, because they need to eat together, they need to train together so that they build cohesiveness or a team spirit.
Though said and done, the team that will be selected to represent Kenya in track and field at the Rio Olympics will once again carry the burden of ensuring that Kenya continues to shine in track and field at the Olympic Games. Lynn Washira, KTN News.
Well, Henry Onyoike is among the Kenyans that have defined the phrase, disability is not inability. The Paralympic record holder, who has been working hard to ensure Kenya's changed attitude towards the disabled, has had a peace race running for 10 years in the country. Robinson Okenya spoke to him about the impact the race has had and files the following report.
10 years ago, Paralympics gold medalist Henry Onyoike took his first step in setting up a road race that will bring Kenyans together, at the same time giving the underprivileged in society a chance to showcase their prowess in athletics. With 2,000 participants taking part in the inaugural race, to the race now attracting more than 10,000 participants, the athlete feels the hope for the future race has achieved its objective.
But we decided to have a run whereby it will accommodate everybody, either their young children or even the senior citizen of our country. With that partnership, with that teamwork spirit, we can go far and we can be able to achieve a lot within a very short time.
With the race adopting a new theme each year, Onyoike says the race has played a big role in changing the lives of many of its participants.
There has been so many people who have been coming to us. Some have been calling our office to say that we need even to have more of this, like 2 or 3 times in a year, because they have really benefited.
The Kiambu County Assembly member has also formed a club that seeks to nurture talent scouted from his peace race.
We are able to identify different talents through this run. And at the moment, there are more than 20 who are training in that camp.
Kwa mwaka wa 2011, ndio pia nilipata chance ingine through Onyoike, nikaenda nikakimbia Hong Kong Marathon.
Onyoike is calling for the government to increase its support to persons with disabilities.
to the government and all the well-wishers to come in a big way so that they can help us for us to realize our dreams, be it in the sport or be it in the offices or wherever we are given opportunity.
The legendary athlete is also looking forward to winning gold for Kenya at this year's Paralympics that are slated for September in Rio, Brazil. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
Well, that is it almost for me on Monday Night News. Thank you very much for your comments on KTN News at Jim Smart. If I could just round up what all of you have been saying. The idea of an election in December is not a very popular idea. That's very unscientific though. Let's see what that happens. That is for me on Monday Night News on this 20th day of May 2016. Have a lovely night. We'll do this all over again, the same station, the same channel at the same time. My name is James Smart. Sleep well.